From the mysteries of the universe to the mysteries of the unknown, this is Mysterious Realms with Mr. Cyber. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Here is your host, Mr. Cyber.
Hello everyone, this is Elijah aka Mr. Cyber, and welcome to another edition of Mysterious Realms. Today we're going to be talking about ETs and UFOs, and our guest is Lesley Mitchell-Clarke, who is a Toronto-based certified clinical hypnotherapist who specializes in a number of modalities, including work with individuals who feel that they have experiences with extraterrestrial beings. Most of this fascinating work, as well as metaphysical therapies such as past life and interlife regression, takes place at Lesley's Toronto hypnosis clinic, Lightwork Hypnosis. Prior to her work in hypnotherapy, Lesley has also had a busy career as an actor, dancer, and a vocalist, and for the past 20 plus years, she has also been a top jazz and arts media consultant with an array of Grammy and JUNO-winning clients, as well as major jazz festival and record labels. Lesley is currently the Director of LMC Media, with both offices in Toronto and Lesley's hometown of New York City. She's also a busy arts writer, contributing regularly to a variety of publications. Now, if it's one thing I love, it's UFOs and ETs. I love this topic, and this is by far the most fascinating, I think, discussion. I know we've been waiting for this whole reveal from the government, etc., but that hasn't happened yet. No, it hasn't. But I guess we'll see what Lesley has to say. It's my honor and privilege to have Lesley Mitchell-Clarke. So, hey, Lesley, thank you for joining us today.
Well, it is absolutely my pleasure to be with you today, and I'm excited to hopefully get down the rabbit hole and get into some interesting items to discuss, and I hope that we'll be able to, engage and also maybe open the minds of some of your listeners.
Oh, indeed.
You never know.
Well, you know what? We go through every type of subject on this show, so everything is on the table. And yours is fascinating because this is one of my favorite topics. ETs, UFOs, all that good stuff. Question I have for you is, what got you interested in this field? Like, where did it all start?
Well, that's a very interesting question. Actually, I have always been, fascinated with ufology and I would have to say, any kind of paranormal, anything, for as long as I can remember. And I did have my own rather bizarre experience that occurred when I was working as a young actress in the Summer Stock Theater in the Black Hills of South Dakota. That's where the Rushmore heads are,
Yeah.
And I had my own strange experience. I'm happy to tell you about it if you like.
Oh gosh, I would love to hear this. Feel free.
Okay. Well, this is what happened. Now, in this wonderful, Summer Stock Theater where I was young actor, I was only about 16 because I was finished with high school. I was ahead a couple of years. So anyway, I was about 16, but one of the gals that was in the company there, who was, a bit older than me, she seemed like a much older person. She was probably 30, Mm-hmm. Anyway, she worked as a singer all the time and frequently at the casinos in Nevada. That was her gig, Las Vegas, Reno, Tahoe.
Yeah.
And she confessed to me that she also had another job where she worked for the government as a communications specialist with extraterrestrial beings, because she was very, very psychic and her natural abilities had been discovered or whatever. And she'd go out there to, a plane wrap airport and get into a plane-wrapped plane and go out to, I suppose, Dreamland or Area 51 or wherever it was that the base was, but it was somewhere out there. And she also told me that she'd been doing this for a long time, and she was very tired of it, and she wanted to just, break away from the whole situation. So she was sort of hiding out, I guess, at the Black Hills Playhouse, but you couldn't really hide out. You can't really hide out from ETs. I think, they can detect our brain signatures, our individual brain signatures. So there is no hiding out, so to speak. At any rate, all summer long, every time we drive into the little town of Custer, which is a very dark, circuitous road through the mountains, we saw craft following us. And she said, well, they're monitoring me. There they are. She'd point them out. And, it was always, unfortunately, I don't think we had the technology at the time to photograph anything like that with just amateur cameras. It would have been seen. But we definitely saw swift moving, disappearing, morphing craft, mostly of what I would call the classic saucer style.
Wow.
So we saw a lot of that. And then I'm just going to cut to one evening, or one night rather. I was asleep. I had been sleeping, and I was awakened by what I thought was like an earthquake. Being from LA, of course, that's what I thought, but it was like a low-end rumble, or vibration would be a better explanation. It wasn't really a motor sound. It was like a vibration. So I woke up, and we were kind of in cabins, so it was very remote, but my entire cabin was flooded with a kind of blue light.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know what was going on. I was wide awake, and then I wasn't. That's the last thing that I consciously remember. The next thing that I remember is it was dawn, and I think I had my nightgown on backwards. It was and this was such a kind of a camp setup that our wash house, where we had showers and toilets and all that was kind of up a little hill. You had to walk to that. And as I was walking up to the hill, I was in terrible pain in my lower abdomen. It was like burning, and I noticed that there was blood coming down my leg. Now, I can be honest, we're all grown-ups here. It wasn't my period.
Yeah.
It wasn't time.
Yeah.
So it was something else. And I think I urinated out some blood. It was very scary. And I went to the doctor, and he said, well, you have something called cervical erosion. Now, cervical erosion is something that happens to women who have had many children. Mm-hmm. It's actually the lining of the cervix kind of pooches out. It's not something that's going to happen to a young girl of 16 who's practically a virgin.
Yeah.
So this in itself was extremely bizarre. And so that was one of the incidences. And then the final one that involved my friend who I was telling you about, I was sort of lounging at the snack bar, as I like to do. And I noticed that, a big sort of late model, huge kind of town car, like a big old Chrysler, drove into the theater. Now the year was 1973. So those big cars, they were already passé. We hadn't seen those, since the 60s or late 60s. So this old car in mint condition came in, pulled up in front of where my friend's cabin was, and I'm going to use the term two beings came out. And I say beings because I could see very clearly. I was only like 25 feet away at the most, and their skin looked like it was made of plastic. That's the only way I can describe it. The skin did not look like our normal human skin. It looked like plastic. And they were wearing the classic, like a joke, they were wearing the classic Men in Black outfits.
Oh, that's
the
awesome.
Black suits and black hats, like from the 40s. right? That's what these guys are wearing. And one thing that was also very unusual is I noticed that their pants legs were up really high, like high waters, and they were wearing very heavy shoes that looked like they were orthopedic shoes. And now I have to wonder in retrospect if the shoes weren't weighted in some way. They were just, it was all incredibly odd. So they went into my friend's thing, her room, and I was just about to barge in over there because I was worried about her. And that's the kind of thing a 16-year-old does, right? I was just about to barge in when these two beings came out of her cabin and just got into their big old, whatever the hell it was, Chrysler Imperial, and they drove away. So I went in and I said, my God, her name was Patty. I said, what the hell was that? Who are those guys? And she said, well, those were ET representatives, and they were trying to talk me into and pressure me into coming back to work for the government. And I told them no many times, and they finally left.
Wow.
And I said, whoa, man. So I was 16 there, and all of those things happened. And of course, already, about a year earlier, Eric von Däniken had released his little cheaply made film, Chariots of the Gods, and everybody was all excited about that, about the possibility of ancient aliens. So it's really been an ongoing thing. Now, I must say that when I first began working as a hypnotherapist, I was working for a specific clinic, a very high-end clinic in a part of town that would be like Beverly Hills kind of, so very high-end clinic. And about once a month, somebody would call the clinic and they would say, I think that I maybe have had an ET encounter. And nobody wanted to take those clients, the other practitioners. So I said, look, anytime anybody like that comes in, you just, I will take those clients, those patients. So I began working with these individuals with a lot of trepidation and not really knowing exactly what I was going to do with these people. But, as it turned out, most of these dear people who believe that they have had, encounters, they had partial memories or fragments of memories or missing time. There are a number of what I would call big red signposts that these people had. So what I did is I was already certified in also metaphysical hypnosis, which is past life regressions.
Yeah.
So I adapted those techniques to specifically work in regression and recover memories from these dear people who were coming to me. And so this became a very successful technique. I was able to help people not only recover memories, but also process them and release them and begin to also release things like anxiety and insomnia and paranoia and some of the other things that come with having suppressed memories of high strangeness. So eventually I began working more and more in this area, and about 12 years ago, I began working as a part of Kathleen Marden's Experiencer Research Project, which is overseen by MUFON, or under the umbrella of MUFON would be more accurate. And so at that point, MUFON then, the Mutual UFO Network, began sending me individuals who were asking for regressions. And then it just took off, so to speak, it took off like a UFO.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
So as I said, that was 12 years ago, and I have really specialized in this kind of work, and it's been incredibly rewarding and incredibly eye-opening. And I have about a year and a half ago, I published my first book, which was called Intersections, A True Story of Extraterrestrial Contact. And that is the story of one specific experiencer. And when he came to me, he was in a very rough state of mind, complete insomniac, parts of memories, thinking he had lost his mind. And it was the journey that he took, or that we took together, rather, as we processed the experiences, and he began to take his life back and to have a much bigger version of his world and what it meant to be him. But, and he was a college professor.
Wow, so he was actually an educated individual, and he was having this. Yeah, see, that's what a lot of people don't understand. They think it happens to your average individual. No, you got some top influential, academia folks that have these type of experiences.
Absolutely. In fact, I would have to say, you just pointed it out so succinctly, but this is a phenomena that crosses all boundaries of socioeconomic situations, cultural boundaries, religious boundaries, boundaries of age. You name it, those boundaries are those lines are crossed all the time. And I think, in my opinion, one of the things, or maybe the central thing, that our extraterrestrial friends are looking for is psychic ability. And I think that may have to do with the fact that many, many evolved beings that engage with us regularly communicate telepathically, or prefer to. So why wouldn't they want to work with human beings who have enough ability to communicate telepathically?
Wow. So here goes a question. Well, let me go back to this point. Thank you for going in depth on my question. How did you become interested in ufology?
Did I go too in depth?
That was perfect. No, that was perfect. Oh my, wow. It's so good. I got to listen to it again later today once this is published, because that was great. Wow. So here's something. So how can you really, or with your experience, how can you identify a genuine experience from someone that has some mental issues? I mean, are you able to correlate something that the difference? Because personally, I would see, let's use a professor as an example, a college professor, someone educated, smart, and then they talk about an experience. Well, there's no mental issues there. It's just, it's like me saying, hey, I've seen a forest fire, or I know forest fire is nothing compared to a UFO or any of that. But what have you come across with these experiences?
Well, obviously, as you say, not everyone who believes that they have had extraterrestrial encounters have actually experienced those types of things. And it is my job to identify mental health issues, because actually in Canada, as a clinical master hypnotherapist, I am actually forbidden to work with anyone who has been diagnosed with a mental health issue. So many times when people come to me, and I should say I have an instinct for this. I've been in mental health care a long time. I'm a psychiatric technician in the States. One of my first jobs, I worked as a psychiatric aide in a full-on lockdown ward in a state hospital. So I really have a very finely tuned instinct for identifying the presence of a profound mental health issue.
Yeah.
And so I rely partly on instinct. Now also, before anyone comes to see me, I generally have a long phone consultation with them. And by the time that I have done that, I am pretty darn sure if the person is mentally healthy and should be coming to see me. It has to do with the questions I ask. And then if someone reveals to me, a long mental health history or some paranoia or also some religious mania might come in, then that's a big warning sign. Now, if people who are unwell mentally, do contact me and it's not appropriate for me to work with them, I do not hang those poor people out to dry, because I have a coterie. I've got colleagues who are psychiatrists, psychologists, and psychotherapists who are also open to the ET experience. So who knows? Maybe somewhere in that person's poor addled brain, the experiences are happening, or they're happening on an etheric level that is not physical. Well, as interesting as that is, I can't really pursue that. I have to send that person on to a mental health care professional who can treat them with medication or whatever is necessary.
Yeah.
So, but most of the time, Elijah, the people that come to me are solid, stable, highly functional, highly intelligent, highly creative people.
Well, that's actually fact, because I know a couple individuals. You know what? I'll use this as an example. My dad. Okay, I'll just use him as an example. Mm-hmm. My dad's a full retired police officer, was in the military, all this stuff, and he used to laugh at this. And he lives out in North Carolina. And this is about 4 or 5 years ago. They were out on a lake because they live out in the country. He was with some friends, and they look up. Well, they were commissioners of the city at that time. And they're just out there on the lake having a good time. They look up. They see these lights doing these movements that cannot be explained. Now, they were craft, but they're like, you know what? They were hesitant to tell anybody because, they were commissioners for the city. Yeah. But they all knew what they saw. And they looked at each other like, did you see that? Yep. And, all these individuals, I know them. They're normal, trustworthy individuals.
Solid people.
They're solid. Yep. They're solid. Yeah. And once I realized that, I'm like, yeah, you know what? Regular individuals see these things. And a lot of times, I'm pretty sure, and too, tons of people have seen these, but some people are just kind of hesitant to speak up. But the good news is a lot of this stuff's coming out now, as you realized, slowly.
Oh, my goodness.
Like that Pentagon release.
We can't expect... Oh, that was bullshit.
I know.
Forgive me.
I know.
Wasn't that a joke?
Well, I'll tell you something funny. I'll tell you something funny. So I was in the military, and I kind of laughed at that. I'm like, really? There's so much more that the military has. And I'm like, that's what you release?
Oh, man. And just regular stuff. And even, the Carolinas, boy, that's a hotbed for USOs. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of submersible unidentified craft. And we've had quite a few of those incidents in Canada, Halifax and up in those northern areas. But there's a lot of submersible activity going on. I personally think that there are all kinds of bases under the water.
Well, you know what? That's what I was thinking of. And I heard someone mention it like a month or so ago. They're like, what if most of the craft we see are coming from under the ocean?
Oh, I think a lot are.
Because
I personally saw a craft go right into Lake Ontario, which is massive, of course.
Oh, yeah.
The Great Lakes are massive. I was interviewing Richard Dolan for something, and he was complaining and saying, "Well, I've never seen anything," and I turned around and looked out the big beautiful window, which I could see over the lake, and I saw a craft do some kind of impossible move, some kind of zigzag 8 billion mile an hour turn, and then go directly into the water of Lake Ontario.
That's crazy.
And we had it on camera. We had it on camera because it was a really wide shot. So I have this, and I sent it to Richard Dolan. So he missed it. He was too busy bitching about not seeing a UFO that he did not see it when it happened right outside the window.
Wow. That's intense. So here's something, sleep paralysis. I've had one episode of that in my lifetime. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any correlation between sleep paralysis and so-called encounters?
I think there is
that
a
makes
big.
sense.
I think there is a big. It does. I think there is a big connection because this is what I think is happening a lot of the time. Now, remember that when we go to sleep, our body releases like paralytic chemicals that keep us from moving around. Otherwise, we would be acting out our dreams. Can you imagine? Because the subconscious mind does not know the difference between sleeping and waking.
Yeah.
It doesn't know the difference. So in our design, in order to keep us from, this crazy kind of acting out of our dreams, we start releasing paralytic chemicals. Now, if you wake up ahead of those chemicals wearing off, then you get one type of classic sleep paralysis, which is easily explainable. Now, the other thing that I think goes on is that, and also this is what I hear from many experiencers who have been lifelong experiencers, which is most of them. In midlife, they begin to experience more events that are more like bilocation or remote viewing, or what's the other word I'm looking for? But you know what I'm talking about. They have experiences that occur in the etheric body where their consciousness actually leaves their body and goes somewhere else to engage with other beings where they are perceived because the vibration is high enough that a lot of people are walking around like that. So there is a lot of interaction. There are a lot of different jobs and teachings and other things going on aboard craft, and many experiencers simply project themselves there. They have been taught how to do it. And, this brings me kind of to another point where I think that a lot of beings project themselves holographically, if you will, because it's like Zoom for the ETs. Why should they bother traveling if they don't have to, if they can make things happen at the speed of thought, which is faster than the speed of light?
Wow.
So I think some of the encounters that people have, beings are not physically there, but are projecting themselves. And I think that we do the same kind of thing. Now, it's very, very possible, I hear about this a lot, where say someone has astral projected out of their body and gone, to do something in space-time, and they come back into their body, and then they wake before they're fully integrated back in their body. And that's when you get those kind of feelings of suffocation, or, it gets a little more, it's very frightening when that happens, when you're coming back into your body and you wake up during that process. So that is the less mainstream interpretation of sleep paralysis.
That makes sense. I get it. That's I'll tell you what, sleep paralysis scared the hell out of me.
Oh, yes. It's terrifying.
Because I was awake,
terrifying.
But I couldn't wake my body up. And it's hard to explain until you have it. It's crazy. Whoo.
Well, it is a weird thing that does happen to most everybody at some point, but in your case, I guess you would need to think about, was I coming back in my body? What else happened? Was I out and about? Is this something that I do regularly?
Yeah.
Or was it just one of those physiological things where you happened to come to consciousness before the paralytic chemicals that your body releases normally dissipated?
Okay.
So that is a question for some internal rumination.
Yeah.
Sounds like one of my early bands.
Right?
Internal rumination.
God, that sounds like such a rock band name from like late 80s
Doesn't
or
it?
90s. I don't know. I don't know. Go back to
That's me. I'm a fossil. I'm from the 80s.
You know what? I was born in 83. I love 80s music. I'm sorry. They came up with some of the great sounds. Wow.
80s music was so much fun.
I know.
You know, it wasn't deep. It wasn't political. It was about dancing.
Right? It's so true. That's so true.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
And if everybody danced together, all the rest of this shit would go away.
I want to rock out now. Damn it.
Yeah. A new theme song.
Right?
Right.
Oh, my gosh. So what is the ultimate goal of recovering these suppressed memories from encounters?
Well, I think, you know, what happens to many, many people is because of the memory suppression, they experience a lot of psychological issues, health issues. Insomnia is one of the biggest ones. These poor people cannot sleep because there's an aspect of them that is vigilant, that doesn't let them sleep because they're afraid of being taken. So there's insomnia. There is depression. There's anxiety. They can become phobic, like they don't want to leave their house, as if that's going to help. You know, so all kinds of disturbing emotions that just interfere with the enjoyment of life are usually a big part of these people's lives, and they usually keep them hidden. So you're talking about a lot of suppression, a lot of pushing down of feelings. And when that happens, then you get migraine headaches, and some people believe a whole plethora of physical disorders are related to pushing down feelings. So that's the kind of thing. And, you know, in other words, well, as an example, from my book, Intersections, the client's name was Wes Roberts. And the first time that he came to me, he couldn't even look me in the eye. I said, this is the most nervous person I have ever met. He was like a cat on a hot tin roof. And, you know, he couldn't, how he functioned at university, at college, how he did that, I do not know, but I think he had a way of compartmentalizing his life. But the man did not sleep. So, and he also had really serious concerns about his mental health, with the fragmented memories and you know, everything that had gone on with him in his life since he was a tiny child. And, you know, I have to say, Elijah, a lot of times for these experiencers, I am the last stop on things they have done, right? Because they want to believe that there is something that they can take a pill for that will stop the bad memories. There's something that there's another therapy. They can exercise. They can, I mean, you name it. These dear people have explored it. So I'm kind of like, as we used to say growing up in New York, I'm like a last chance Texaco. You know, I'm the last stop. So when I am able to regress these people and a real memory is revealed with incredible detail and emotion, and it's real, and then it all comes back to the person, then they know that they are not mentally ill. That's when they really, really know. So my job, as I see it, my job is to help these dear people recover their memories, process the memories, and then release any and all negativity that is associated with the memories, but keeping their specialness and keeping their ability to communicate with the ETs, and now seeing themselves as a person of value, as a necessary person involved in the waking up of our world.
Okay. Wow.
So it's let's see, but you know, sometimes what a lot of what I've been seeing recently, and yourself having been in the military, you can probably relate to this. I've been getting a whole lot of people that have been involved in the secret space program.
Oh yeah,
in different aspects of it.
It's real too.
I've been getting a lot of people. Oh yeah, it's real. I've been getting a lot of people who have been through what they call the 20 and back. And in fact, Captain Randy Kramer is a very good friend of mine. He's, I've known him for quite some time, and he's one of the people that is, I think, incredibly genuine. I haven't done any regression with him, but he did work with a hypnotherapist, probably in Oregon, because that's where he's from. So, but there you have it. And, when we process these memories, when we eliminate the fear, when we release the fear, then people start taking back their lives. And one thing that we have to keep in mind is that there are a wide variety of beings that people are engaging with. We're not talking about just one type of experience, although there are commonalities. And I believe that many species are working together for our benefit. But there are many different types of beings, and I will also say unreservedly that upwards of 90% of people's experiences are positive and illuminating.
Gosh, this is deep. Oh my God. This stuff is deep, Lesley. Whew. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we're going down the rabbit hole, man.
I'm loving this.
Little tinfoil chateau on.
Well, it's weird. I've had to go back and listen to some past interviews that I did because it was so deep, and I had to listen to it a few times. I'm like, it clicked. It started to make more sense. I'm loving this. Oh my God.
Well, I think that truth resonates with people, and we have been lied to. And I mean, I'm a good Catholic girl. I was lied to by our religious institutions.
Oh yeah,
the Vatican knows so much.
It's so
Why
true.
Why do you think the Jesuits have like the snazziest telescope in the world?
I'll tell you something funny.
They have been into this. They have been into this since the dawn of time, really.
Well, it's weird because I grew up Catholic, and I took my wife like 4 years ago to Europe because she'd never been. Yeah. And we went to Rome, and we visited Vatican City when we were there. And we went to St. Peter's Cathedral. And I walk in, and I look down at the ground. I'm like, what is that? All those horoscopes.
Yeah. The pagan, you see, the thing about the church and the thing about the Catholic Church is these guys, and it's a male-dominated situation. That's part of the problem. But these guys, many of which who were anything but priests, they were political guys, and they used pagan symbolism, paganism to get new people into the new religion. I mean, look at every feast day, saint's feast day, actually is positioned on a pagan holiday. Yeah. Especially when you look at, I'm Irish, right? And the pagan stuff there is just below the surface. I mean, it's there, really. So they had to, everything that the Catholic Church did was incorporating paganism to attract the illiterate populations of the time. And did you know that this is something you might not know? In the early Christian church, before the Council of Nicaea, where they all got together and decided what Christianity was going to be, before that, there was not only was there a ceremony for same-sex relationships, they had a kind of a wedding ceremony, a commitment ceremony for people who wanted to be with someone of the same sex. Oh yeah. And this existed in the early church. And of course that was thrown out, of course, as was the Book of Mary Magdalene and all of the more esoteric, more apocryphal books of the Bible that were esoteric and talked openly about, well, who was Noah? Well, he was the grandson of Enki, so an Anunnaki. So, we have there's a lot of information that has just been edited out, and that's part of the problem. And, even the communion ceremony of the Catholic Church is based on an Egyptian ceremony where they had little wafers that were made, little cookies in the to represent the body parts of, was it Horus who was taken apart and his body parts were spread all. Anyway, It was about, and they believed in the transmogrification? I forget what it's called. The idea that when you eat the wafer, or when you eat, these little body parts of Horus in their ritual, that it turns into actual flesh. Do you remember that as a kid? Used to be the concept.
Gosh, well, you know what?
You couldn't bite the wafer. Remember, you couldn't bite the wafer because it was in the process of turning into actual flesh.
Yeah, well, you know what? As I grew up, I started thinking, I'm like, why do you keep re-crucifying this guy every Sunday? It's like...
Why?
It's like...
Can't we just put that aside?
Well, the thing I always thought is like, Jesus never believed in cannibalism. It's supposed to be an act of remembrance. It's remembering what he did. It's not him again.
And I think even by concentrating on that violent, terrible part of it, when I can only posit it as a person. I'm no expert, but wasn't the main thing that he came back in his etheric body or his physical body, whichever happened, and to prove that there was another life beyond this?
Yeah.
Wasn't that the main thing, that we are a spirit?
Yeah.
We're mind. See, I think the Trinity is mind, body, and spirit. I think pretty much everything that Jesus said has been twisted up, because we know that he went, it's known that he traveled in India, and he studied with the great yogis. And he also went with his uncle, Saint Joseph of Arimathea. He went to the tin mines in Ireland and studied Celtic mysticism. So he was a real profound mystic when he sort of reemerged at age 33 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think his mission, what it was supposed to be, was not as successful as one would have liked. Sorry.
No, it's so true. It's so true. It's a fact.
I mean, look at the people that we have, the hateful people. I don't want to say where they are, but below the Mason-Dixon line, many are those Bible-banging people that are embracing hate and differences, and they're fearful out of fear.
Yeah.
And so this wonderful, if you want to call him a prophet or a mystic, what he said, his message of love and peace, has been twisted by the world to this moment. So you know what, Elijah? If I were sophisticated ET looking down at this, I would say, clean up your own backyard. Clean up your own backyard. I don't believe that we need any kind of demonic or ET influence to be terrible to each other. The responsibility for that is on us, period.
Wow. Well, you know what? Going back to what you said, and that was the whole thing with what, going back to the whole Christian thing. You know what? Jesus was all about love. Mm-hmm. And everything is twisted. That's exactly right.
And completely, and also, if I may, also without any political or suppressive things going on, the Prophet Muhammad was a religion of peace, designed to settle down a war-torn, strife-torn area of the world.
Yeah.
Buddhism is all about peace. So again and again, we keep being sent these beings. Maybe they have special DNA. They're enlightened. We keep being sent these messengers and ignoring the simplest of messages. And again, that's not all people. In fact, I believe the majority of people, even if it's only 53% or 60%, or 60%, the majority of the people on this planet are good people who want to do the right thing, but can get confused.
Yeah. So,
and it doesn't help when you're being lied to by politicians and governments and churches, and there's a whole climate of lying in the United States, a whole climate of lying, and like I said, I'm really old. I'm a fossil. I go back to, I'm so old that the people I went to high school with died in Vietnam.
Yeah.
Lots of them. So, my mistrust of the people that are in charge is pretty big. So I really didn't expect any disclosure from the government. I think disclosure is a grassroots movement. I think the ETs who are concerned about that type of thing gave up on dealing with our central governments a long time ago. I really do. And it's people like you and people like George Norrie and, all the people that are working in programmation of esoteric subjects. It's those people that are bringing about disclosure, yourself and your colleagues. And I have a little phrase I use. I like to call you guys the midwives of disclosure because that's how I see it.
Well, you know what? I think disclosure is going to happen because nowadays people are so vocal. I think it's going to happen mainly by the just public people, the regular individuals, not government.
Yes. Oh yes. Absolutely. And look at the incredible testimonies from people. I know that if you go do a thing with him, like Randy Kramer told me, they ran him through 3 lie detector tests before he ever went on the air. So you're talking about credible people.
Yeah.
In general, you're talking, this is becoming mainstream. Look at the programs just on regular, satellite dish television. Look at the amount of programs that are on metaphysical subjects. When I was a kid, the best thing we had was, The Outer Limits. Or,
oh yeah. I remember that.
We didn't have anything like that, and we didn't have anything like that. So it's all about the awareness increasing, and there's nothing anyone can do to stop it. Yeah. Nothing.
So so when it comes to ET encounters, so I always picture they're all bad and everything. Are some benign? Or are there also horrible, bad entities or negative beings, if you call it?
Well, what I would say to that now, again, I'm talking about Randy Kramer. Randy Kramer told me that, within the secret space program, he says we pretty much control who comes into our solar system.
Yeah.
So it's not like we are at the random, that we are available to anybody who wants to come in. Now, also, it seems that there is a kind of a united federation of planets, like a Gene Roddenberry kind of organization of beings that are aligned together to help us and to help us move into the next density, to increase our vibration and also to turn on all our DNA. A lot of our DNA is latent and hasn't been turned on yet. But there are things that we can do ourselves when we're taught how to do it to turn on that latent DNA. So much of what happens now as far as encounters is completely positive. People are seeing a lot of Pleiadians, Lyrians, Arcturans. Now, that being said, there are all kinds of grays, and most of them are pretty benevolent. Now, the little tiny guys that have always been such a part of, the experiments and this, that, and the other, I'm not even sure that those beings are fully biological. They always have like a captain or a leader who's telling them what to do. And when the people I work with, because I try to get them in real time to talk to the beings, they can't get much out of them, like a sentence or two, like not thoughts, but they don't seem to be fully biological. It seems they've been engineered for space travel. Now, about the negative grays, now I'm sure you're aware that there was some type of an agreement that took place after the Roswell crash, which was actually the crash of 3 vehicles, not just one. But after the Roswell crash, there were survivors, and those beings who were grays, they were Zeta Reticuli, not bad beings, just sort of neutral beings, maybe what we would call amoral, but they went to the head of the U.S. government. Well, they were under their control. What could they do? And brokered a deal where they were having physical problems. They couldn't reproduce. They were having some kind of issue with that. And they said, well, in exchange for some technology, we want to be able to be allowed to take a tiny percentage of your human beings and harvest biological material, or reproductive material would be closer to what they were talking about. And apparently, President Truman and the Joint Chiefs of Staff agreed to this. And it was an agreement that was not to go on forever. It had a certain time-dated thing, and I believe it expired like 10 years ago. So now, unless someone is like my age or older, I'm not really seeing those types of experiences where people are taken aboard a craft and they're harvesting sperm and ova and that kind of thing, and then they're shown their children later in another encounter. That does happen to older experiencers, but we're not really seeing that now. That time is over. It's been stopped. And if any of your readers are really interested in how the secret space program began, there's a wonderful book called The Day After Roswell, written by Philip Corso. And he was the military gentleman who was put in charge of the Department of Foreign Technology. So it was foreign, all right. So they sent like fiber optics to be developed and reverse engineered over to, the Skunk Works, and this thing went over to Hughes Aircraft, and they divided up this technology they had so that nobody really knew what they were doing or how it was connected to anything else. But, that was a very, very dark period, and caused a lot of fear and a lot of trauma for the people that were taken strictly for that physiological harvesting.
Wow. Whoo. Oh my gosh. So wow. I'm still trying to wrap my head around all this stuff. This is really intense, if you want to put it that way. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Gosh. So I want to go back to hypnotic regression. And okay. I forgot if we covered that completely, but how does that actually work?
Well, how hypnosis works in general is it's the same kind of thing, and bear in mind that hypnosis is ancient in the extreme. It's well over 6,000 years old, and if you believe in previous supercultures, Lemuria, Atlantis, Hyperborea, whatever, it's older than that. Now somehow the ancients, and that includes the ancient Greeks and Egyptians, because they both had clinics devoted to hypnosis. They called them sleep temples. So somewhere along the line, these ancients were probably given the information that if the physical body can become relaxed enough, then the practitioner, like myself, has access to the subconscious mind, which is the biggest part of us. And that's where all of our behaviors are formed. That's where all of our memories are held. Anything that's ever happened to us. If I wanted to take you back to your 5th birthday party, you could tell me everything about it. So once the physical body gets relaxed enough, then I can go through the steps that involve, if I'm doing a past life regression, I usually, to get things going, I move the person through happy events in their own life. And I go all the way back to the early childhood experiences and to the birth experience, and then we go beyond that. Now, with regression for an event, it's a little bit different. Usually what I will do is, if an experiencer comes to me, I've taken very specific notes on what they do remember. So I will get them super relaxed, and I do that just by talking to people and relaxing different parts of their body. And then when I see from the physical signs that they're in the alpha state, that they or perhaps even the theta state, when I see from the physical signs that I look for, I know that I'm ready to begin the journey. So I begin talking to them. And I take them back, to that time where they have the most memory, the most recall. And then we just walk through the experience together and get the rest of it. And if anything ever happens that is frightening or terrifying or painful, and that's not likely, but if anything that's disturbing happens during these experiences, it's not necessary for the experiencer to relive it hypnotically. I immediately make that person an observer. So they still see what's going on, but maybe they're up at the ceiling looking down and they're not reacting emotionally. They're just an observer. And by doing that, they can still process the experience. And then, of course, when I wake them up, I allow them to have complete recall of everything that we explored.
Okay.
And that essentially, and then there's a therapy part to it as well, where I help them to release any negativity and get in touch with their uniqueness and their strengths. So there's also an awful lot of positive reinforcement in addition to the exploration.
Okay. So it's pretty deep stuff. Hypnotic regression therapies. It
is deep, but that's how I can easily, make the statement that I think only on rare occasions is there such a thing as a person who has had one ET encounter. I think if you've had one, there's a very good chance that you're a lifelong experiencer.
Yeah. So going back to all your research and your studies, what's usually an average age where these encounters usually begin with the whole ETs? Is there an average age?
Well, the encounters. The encounters generally begin at age 3, 2 or 3. And these are very gentle experiences. Usually there's a being that comes in that looks very humanoid, and either they just walk the child out the backyard and there's a craft there, a shuttlecraft or whatever, or there are instances where the child is floated out the window or through the roof. And I think the ETs are all pretty able to do this. They just simply, they can open apertures. They can also probably speed up the vibration of our cellular vibration, so that we can pass through what seem like solid objects. But of course, everything is cells, and all cells are in motion.
Exactly.
So there's really no such thing as a solid object. It's just a question of, like on a radio dial, if we could tune our cellular vibration to the fireplace, then I could walk right through it,
Yeah. Well, that is true.
And sometimes beings come in, and I've heard often that they're carrying wands or something that looks like a wand that seems to be able to open up an aperture or a temporary, if you want to use the term Stargate or whatever, for a period of time. They can open them and close them at will.
Well, talking about like the objects they might be carrying, or the kind of like, the whole Stargate deal. Why do the ETs like seem to beam in? You know what I'm talking about? Like, what's that whole concept there?
Well, again, I think that they have a different idea of matter. I think that I also think that some of the beings that visit us are more interdimensional. And so they are not maybe solidly physical in the sense that we think of it. So I think that we are, the whole idea of evolution, I believe, is awareness and a speeding up of our vibration so that we move to higher levels of reality that we create ourselves. I believe that thought instigates matter, not the other way around.
Okay. I get what you're saying. So their whole, oh gosh, how can I explain this? They're so damn. Let's just say they're beyond sophisticated compared to us.
What? I'm sorry. What did you say, Elijah?
They're way beyond sophisticated than we are. Like they're past.
Well, yes and no. But remember that we have incredible technology that has been hidden from us.
Well, yeah, that is true.
Trillions and trillions of dollars that are missing from the U.S. Treasury that have been siphoned into all of these secret space programs. We have had bases. In fact, Dick Cheney was in charge of this. We have had bases on lunar defense base on the moon since the 50s, since after this Roswell business. There were, Randy talks about Mars defense base. So at least two of the planets have elaborate U.S. and world government facilities, and they have all kinds of technology. In fact, even Corey Good and also who is Jason Rice also talked about this. When people sign on, when cadets sign on to the 20 and back, when they leave Earth and they go out to wherever they are assigned, they bring with them 3 cloned bodies. And the bodies are not alive. They're just held in stasis in case body parts need to be accessed in the brutal things that go on out there, mostly with reptilians. So if they need body parts, they have these cloned bodies. And apparently, according to Randy Kramer, it's actually possible we have the technology to transfer the soul, the very consciousness from one being to another. And there are times when someone's body, if they've been a soldier in these programs, is so damaged that it can't be repaired even with the most extreme technology. And so in those cases, their consciousness is removed from the broken body and put into one of the new cloned bodies.
Oh, wow. Wow. So
But imagine we have the technology hidden from us that can cure cancer, that can heal spinal cord injuries. I mean, we are suffering as a people because information has been taken from us, hidden from us, kept out of our reach.
Well, it's true. And going back to your point with like funds that went missing, I remember they did an audit. Good gosh, when was this? This is several years ago, and trillions were missing.
Trillions.
It's like, what? It's one thing if it's millions, but trillions? Where the hell did it go? And I think that's obvious.
Well, I think it's obvious.
Yeah.
I think it is obvious. And with all of these whistleblowers coming out, these now I don't know Corey Good very well. Of the big three right now, which I would say is Randy Kramer, Jason Rice, and Corey Good, and perhaps right from your area. What is his name? He's an attorney, and he even ran for a political office.
Yeah. So I'm going to interview him eventually. I just interviewed a few months back his one of his sidekicks. You're talking about Andrew Basaggio, I think it is, or the guy who was part of the whole teleport thing.
Basiago.
Yeah,
Andrew Basiago.
Yes. He lives in the same city as me.
He was involved in Project Pegasus, Project Pegasus. As a young, smart kid, he was drafted into the program, probably with the help of parents. And, it is surprising, Elijah, is how many people that come to me, men and women that have been involved in the SSP, had parents who were in the military. And, I like Randy Kramer believes that he was actually enhanced in the womb. That yes, his parents' DNA is in there, but other DNA as well. That's what he says can be commonplace. And many of these parents who have children with the experiences were stationed along the DEW line, which were cooperative U.S. and Canadian bases that were that were situated in the very far north. The idea being that during the Cold War, if Russia attacked, we could get them first. Yeah. So a lot of crazy stuff went on in those bases along the DEW line.
So going back to kind of like what you're talking about in a way, I think we can kind of fork into this or kind of merge into this. Regarding any evidence with abductions, have you seen any correlation between specific like family lines where this goes down?
Yeah.
For like research or experimentation?
Absolutely. Now, getting your parents to admit it can be another thing. But I think the ETs are extremely aware of lineage. And again, I believe what they are looking for is PSI ability. That is the genetic key. They want the most evolved people to deal with because it's easier for them. That, I think, is what's going on. So many times I've heard people tell me, I have one gentleman I work with, and he said that, he had been abducted since he was a little kid. And he said, in the early abductions, it was always he and his brother. And he would look over and he'd see his brother on the other side of the room. But the brother was always making a lot of trouble and screaming and couldn't be calmed down or whatever. So after a certain amount of time, it was just my patient who was going, because the brother was scrubbed out. He was rejected because of bad behavior. So a lot of times the ETs will start with all the siblings, and then we'll narrow it down to the ones that either have the most ability or are the most easy to work with.
That's what I figured.
But it's hard to know. Like, I don't know about you, but my grandparents, if they had an experience being Catholics, they might have interpreted it as a religious event.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean?
Easily.
It's hard to say. That would be a more the saints came down, and that would be a more a thing that I might hear about. But I don't think they would have interpreted a paranormal experience or extraterrestrial experience as that. I think it would have been converted to a religious experience, don't you know?
Oh my gosh. I love it. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. This, this whole ET field's so deep. I always laugh because remember when they always denied like Area 51? And then they're like, oh no, it does exist. It's like they're slowly trickling stuff out. It's crazy. Yeah. It's like, can you just get to, I'm like, you know what? You don't have to come out and show us stuff. Just show us like a door hinge. Show us something so basic.
Yeah. Show us a basic. Show us the washroom. I don't care. Show us something. Well, they're liars. The lying. And like I told you in that first story that we started off with, is my friend Patty, was picked up every day. Yeah. In a plane wrapped plane, and flown out there to bloody Area 51.
Yeah.
And remember, there's a lot of stuff out there, man. There are a lot of bases out there all over the desert, all over the Mojave Desert, China Lake, tons. Edwards Air Force Base. They're all out there. So, and I believe that they have a railway system that goes from base to base, and there's extensive underground structures.
I'll tell you something crazy. I was in Las Vegas a couple weeks ago, I was at the airport, and I looked out the window, and I took a photo. They have these planes called the Janet planes that fly up to Groom Lake. They're a white plane with a red stripe on the side, unmarked. And the only reason I know that is because my friend was a high-ranking Air Force officer who always flew into Groom Lake, and he said, "Yeah, have you seen the Janet planes?" Yeah. But it's on Google. It's not classified. You can see it on Google. And I found that. Yeah. I first heard about that through Bob Lazar, if you ever heard of him. And it's
Bob, poor sweet guy.
I know.
What bullshit he's been through, huh?
It's crazy.
That poor man has been through it. And what they did to try to defame him, erase his educational credits.
It's true.
Make him out to be a kook. And now look, there and even now there has been some recognition of, is it Element 19? Is that what he talks about, that he worked at the Red
Element? I think 115. And everyone laughed. They're like, Element 115 isn't real. Yeah. Well, quite a few years ago, they synthesized it over in Europe, and they found out, no, it's real.
Yeah. Now it's real. So, and I would love for Bob Lazar to be completely vindicated in his lifetime, in the same way that I would love for dear Travis Walton to be completely vindicated in his lifetime. Here are two guys whose lives were effectively ruined by speaking out.
Yeah. Well, it's true. I've heard like Travis Walton stories like crazy, and he is so legit. Oh my gosh. Mm-hmm. He's completely legit.
Have you ever had the chance to meet him in person?
No, I've never met him in person.
Oh, well, I just have to tell you that you are so right. I mean, he has a vibe. I've met him a number of times. I've been fortunate. He has a vibe of honesty, and I don't know. He's completely credible, and his story hasn't changed one bit since the day it happened. I mean, he the movie that was made about his experience.
You talk about Fire in the Sky?
I enjoyed the movie. Yeah, I enjoyed that, but of course the sequence where he's actually aboard the craft was they brought in another director, an Italian director, to just shoot a sequence that had nothing to do with what actually happened. So, they had to, they couldn't just tell the story as it was. They had to make it spectacular and scary, and because Travis believes that what happened to him now, in retrospect, all these years, he believes that he should have never. It was wrong place, wrong time. It was benign beings taking some earth samples, to check on radiation or our other ecological assaults. That's what they were doing. And he jumped into that beam. And, he believes that he actually did die when he fell the 20 feet or whatever it was, and that the beings then worked on him. They took him aboard because they just basically said, oh shit, man, let's this poor guy, he's not supposed to be dead. This is an accident. So they worked on him, and that it took them, however long he was gone, the week, it took them that long to fix him, and they did. And as soon as he woke up, then he started flinging around little grays who were like the minions, little servants. And because he was so scared, he's a big man. Travis Walton is, God, I'm so short. I know he's I think he's about 6'4", 6'5", I would guess. So he was an imposing figure. So when he became conscious and he had some little nursing drone grays around him, he went nuts, and he was so terrified, and the little grays just skittered out of the room. They left. And then the next thing that happened is two humanoids came and comforted him and then took him out of the ship. And where he landed, where they put him, where he could make a phone call. Wow. So, it's what was made to look like some kind of horror-filled thing in the movie Fire in the Sky really was not that. It was about Travis being in the wrong place, making a stupid impulsive decision, jumping into the ray, and then our cousins, our Gino cousins, fixing him.
Wow. So he went through all that, and they probably just fixed him.
They did. He went through all that. There's going to be another Travis Walton movie very soon. And do you know who is playing Travis? It's great casting. Keith Urban.
Oh, Keith
Urban. You know
Urban?
who that is?
Oh,
no,
gosh.
Not Keith Urban. Carl Urban. Not Keith Urban.
Oh, yeah, Carl Urban.
Urban.
Yeah.
Remember him he plays McCoy in the new Star Trek films?
Yeah.
And he was one of the main, riders of Rohan in Lord of the Rings. He is Eowyn's brother. So he's a big, tall guy himself, and I think it'll be perfect, and I think it's going to be a much more authentic because Travis is actually an advisor on it.
True.
Not, he's not cut out of the project.
Yeah, he's like the main, how can I say it? Yeah, I know what you're talking about. But it's,
he's
sorry, go ahead.
He's one of the most credible ET experiencers that we have.
Well, you know what?
Alive.
It's weird. I listened to his full Joe Rogan interview like a few times. It's the most recent one. And oh my gosh. His story never changes, just like Bob Lazar's Area 51's story.
Yeah.
It's all the same. He never deviates.
And in my book, never deviates. In my book, liars and fabricators change their stories all the time because they can't remember what they said. Their liars change their stories all the time. These wonderful men. And again, I would have to put in that category, ground zero for ET encounters in our lifetime, Betty and Barney Hill. And those dear people, their story never varied either, not one iota. And for coming forward, I think in the time that they did, I think it was very traumatic for Barney. In fact, Kathy Martin, who is the niece of Betty Hill, said that the whole thing really just killed Barney. He died way too young.
I forget how old. I saw it like a couple months ago. Oh gosh.
Yeah. So Barney Hill was only in his 50s or so when he
young.
passed away. Yeah, too young. And it was but there they were. They are, there is still physical evidence. Betty's dress still exists with some kind of green substance that nobody can identify. So there is still physical evidence still exists.
Yeah.
And not to mention the fact that Betty under hypnosis was able to draw a star map, which was later identified by Marjorie Fish, who was a high school science teacher. She identified Betty's map as the Zeta Reticula system. And so Betty had drawn the system and also the trade routes. She explained it was the trade routes that they told her that they were on. Trade routes. So, things are very interesting in our world out there. And I hope that we in our lifetime, I feel that we will have complete I think we will have complete disclosure in our lifetime. And then, our children's and our children's lives will be involved with an intergalactic existence.
Sorry, I'm processing.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Oh my gosh,
quite
Lesley. Whew. So I'm going to go to something that I can process a little bit. Oh my God. So some of your clients, do they experience or do they mention different types of ETs, like the way they look, the way they are?
Yep. Yep.
Different hybrids or whatever?
Yep.
What have you come across with
there
that?
There are a wide variety of beings that people talk about. Now, in childhood experiences, which sometimes involve not painful but benign examinations, little games that kids play together, in childhood experiences, many of the people I work with talk about the brown doctors. Now, the brown doctors, as far as I can tell, I think that they are a type of reptilian that is extremely adept in genetics. And they are the genetics experts of our quadrant of the galaxy. They are not bad. They are benign. Randy Kramer says we have treaties with various types of grays. So, from what I've heard about the brown doctors, they call them the brown doctors because sometimes they get a glimpse of the face and it looks kind of scaly and leathery. Yeah. But the brown doctors wear big capes and hoods. They take a lot of care not to be seen by children because they don't want to be, they don't want to scare them, and they're aware of that. So we've got the brown doctors who I believe are reptilians, and they're very prominent in especially early, more medically oriented things that go on with experiencers, children experiencers. Now, there are, as I said, there are a lot of different types of grays, the little drones, the taller ones. And there are, in fact, a lot of what you would call hybrid beings working and living on craft. And so it's not unusual for me to hear reports of, well, I think this woman is gray. She doesn't have a whole lot of hair and her eyes are a little larger, but she seems to be a hybrid being. I hear an awful lot of that hybrid beings are regularly encountered. Now, another type of being that I hear about are insectoids, who are not evil. They are, benign and intelligent and can be very loving. In fact, I know this sounds so far out, but one of the secret space program guys that I work with, when he was early in his training, he formed a relationship with a kind of a guide, if you will, I'm going to call him, and his name is Kern, and he is an insectoid. And Kern usually shows up by projecting himself, by sending a hologram. He doesn't necessarily travel. So here we go again with a sophisticated being that is, physically quite unlike us, with the exception of 2 hands and 2 feet, and they're engaging regularly. So let's see, what did I talk about? Brown doctors, grays, what was I just talking about? Hybrids. Yeah. And insectoids. And there are other beings too. There are beings that have bluish skin. There are humanoids that are kind of thin and sexless, like you can't even tell what gender they are or if they even have gender. So there are all kinds of beings around. Now, as far as beings being nasty or evil or I would have to say that the only time I hear about something like that is if it involves a gray of some sort. I have never heard about anything nasty or bad happening from another humanoid. And when I say humanoid, I mean there can be a great diversity there. Hybrid, even the reptilians that we work with are medically oriented and not about to do anything like that. So there are apparently still some grays and rogue grays, maybe. And, you have to think that, our world, it's a microcosm. Mm-hmm. But the world, the life that's external to us, it's like everything else. There are mostly good guys and then there's some bad guys. You know, it's I think it's really pretty much the same.
It's all over the board.
But luckily, it doesn't seem like any really bad guys are getting here. And I know that there have been, let's see, what was it? Randy Kramer told me that there was when he was in the program, there was what he called the Battle of Phobos.
Yeah.
And Phobos is one of the moons of, oh God help me, moon of something.
Oh,
is
gosh.
it a moon of Jupiter? Anyway, whatever. There was a base of nasty grays there that were causing a lot of trouble, and we went in, typically as Americans do. We just went in and bombed the shit out of it. That was it. That was it for that base. That was it for those grays. They were done.
Out of there. They're
out of there.
Getting out of there.
Out of there.
Oh my gosh.
Now I know that I have heard not only from various, again, guys in the secret space program, that there are several types of reptilians that are indigenous to Mars, and they live underground. And we have a kind of treaty with some, and there are also a group of reptilians that are rogue and kind of go from planet to planet trying to take resources. And that group is where the main battles, as I understand it, have broken out.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And I've heard that, I know. Well, I asked Randy to really describe to me, like, what the soldiers wear, what you wear when you're a soldier on Mars, battling reptilians. So it's a pretty serious suit that he says, as soon as you get to where you're going, it releases chemicals into your body that make you like a super fighter. Now, I don't know if those are steroids. I don't know if it's cocaine. I don't know what, but there is a chemical release that goes into your body as soon as you put on a specific type of suit to go out and do battle. So
it's making them super soldiers.
Yeah.
Question
well,
now.
We haven't given up on that idea.
Have any of your clients been involved with the super soldier program? Do you know? Or have any of them brought it up?
I think anyone who has been in 20 back, I would consider that part of the super soldier program, because there's all kinds of enhancements that go on. They teach you how to bilocate, and like many of these individuals, they've been enhanced in the womb somehow with extra DNA. I think now the 20 and back, the secret space program, I know has many levels and many programs, and some of them are very unenlightened, like the guys that are cleaning the ships, right? I mean, not all of the programs are elite, but I do believe that we have elite forces that are enhanced in various ways, chemically and genetically.
Okay. That's really interesting. Wow. So another question about your patients. Have any of them had implants?
Implants.
You know that whole implant deal?
That's a whole new thing. But I would have to say absolutely yes. Now, we have, as humans, a very negative idea about implants, about somebody putting something in us that we don't want, or we didn't order, or we didn't ask for. We can have lots of plastic surgery. We can have brow lifts, boob jobs, butt jobs. We can have all that stuff done, but we're really, really touchy about something that is really no more dangerous than a step-up transformer. That's what I think implants are. And I think they are, there's a lot of different categories. I think that, unfortunately, Dr. Lear, who was the main guy, the main implant man who removed so many of them, he's passed away, but his research lives on. And there's all different kinds of implants. There are implants that seem to dissolve. once oxygen hits them. There are implants that seem to scurry away that you have trouble getting. So I think we're dealing with both secret space program implants and implants given to us as a gift, really, by the ETs, if you're in the program. And I think all of the implants are designed to increase our psychic abilities. And I think that when they're no longer needed, most of them dissolve.
I gotcha.
So, I think it's, I don't think it's a huge dangerous thing to have an implant. I think what it means is, you have a little bit of technology that is going to help you with whatever role you are playing in disclosure, really.
Yeah.
So, they're not tracking devices, for God's sake. That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
I always wondered what they were. I'm like, what kind of technology is in that to transmit a signal really far? You know what I mean? I always wondered specifically what they were.
I think it's turning on DNA. It may have something to do with brain chemistry. Who knows? But it's not like a negative bad thing, and it has nothing to do with finding us because, as I said, each of us emits a unique brain chemistry. Brain signal. Each of us has a unique brain signature. And so once you understand that, you can find anyone in the world if you have the technology.
Oh yeah, that's true. Completely true.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my gosh. So, what do you think? This is just really fascinating, all this stuff, because I've talked to quite a few individuals that have went really deep regarding the whole ET topic and everything. You're the most in-depth person I've spoken to yet, and it's unbelievable.
Oh, thank you.
It's wow.
Thank you so much.
It's intense. That's why I'm just sitting here thinking. I'm just processing all this right now. I apologize if I seem quiet. I'm just really thinking through all this. Oh my gosh. Whew.
Well, I think, I'm kind of like a first responder in a way to people who have had experiences. So I've been really blessed, especially over this past dozen years, to have heard so many amazing things from so many truthful, wonderful people. So it gives me hope. It makes me feel optimistic that there are our space cousins, if you want to think of them that way, who are looking out for us. And I guess, I think this earth is kind of known as the grand experiment because we have such a diversity of peoples and intellects and awareness. Now, also, we probably have the genetic influences from a number of different ET races that have visited us since we were ape-like hominids. We have the influences and the genetic material from many, many different races, and we have a huge diversity of development. Look at it this way. On one hand, we've got like the Dalai Lama, and on the other hand, we've got Donald Trump.
Yeah.
So we've got absolute pond-dwelling scum, and we have highly evolved beings that can bilocate and do all these things in their physical bodies.
Yeah.
So this is really an amazing place, and as I understand it from the information that I hear, it's quite unique. That is the fascination with Earth. That's why all these beings are here. This is a unique place.
Well, you know what? It is very unique. And I always wonder what your opinion is on this. Humanoids. Do you think they're walking around?
They're walking around for sure.
And reptilians.
They're walking. Well, I don't know about, we get into this whole David Icke thing. And I think he's ridiculous and generating fear.
Yeah, I've listened to his interviews. I know.
I do not believe that there is this big reptilian presence on Earth is kind of a dark fantasy. I do not believe that exists in any way. However, there are some reptilian beings who engage with us who we have apparently agreements with, who are not negative beings, like the brown doctors. So there may be a slight reptilian presence on Earth, but are the reptilians part of the New World Order? Is the Queen a reptilian? This is insanity. No. The Queen is mostly German, but she's not a reptilian.
That's so true. That's so true. Oh my gosh. That's such a fact.
No, I can't stand it. I think those guys, those fear mongers like David Icke, should just step away.
Oh gosh, I hate fear mongers. I can't stand it.
Oh, I hate it. And we have, and I don't know why it is, but we do, as Homo sapiens, we all seem to have a kind of revulsion to amphibians and reptilians. It's there are some people that love them, but I say as a race, we're uncomfortable with them. And which is ironic, since we do have what we call the reptilian brain. We have reptilian DNA.
Oh,
there is no question of it. You know, there is no question of it. But we're uncomfortable with reptilians and reptiles as a people generally. You know, of course there are big exceptions to that, but you know, so it's disturbing to us. And when you get people worked up about reptilians, shape-shifting reptilians, if I hear that one more time, I have seen no evidence of it, Elijah. I have not seen one piece of recall, one iota, one whiff of evidence that points to anything resembling a reptilian conspiracy or presence or what have you. I think that's fantasy time. I do.
Well, I want to ask you this. Going back to your, everything you do, I don't know how I can word this. Like, what techniques, or how did you develop your techniques that you currently use working with these experiencers?
Okay. Well, I think that as a hypnotherapist, I was blessed with kind of a calming voice, and it's actually pretty easy for me to get people in trance. But we all walk around partly in trance anyway. We're all partly hypnotized when we just walk around. But I think, as I mentioned earlier, my main techniques, my regression techniques in working with experiencers or anybody else that wants to go to a specific thing, were developed as a result of the work that I learned to do in past life regression. And I studied with the eminent teacher, my mentor, Dr. Georgina Cannon, who is probably the foremost living expert on past life regression and interlife regression right now. And so I did an awful lot of that before I ever worked with an experiencer. So I was comfortable with regression, I suppose, and a lot of hypnotherapists don't do it at all. They think it's too weird or too creepy or too scary or too hard. I don't know what their problem is, but for me, it's always been, I don't want to say easy, but it's a technique that, I have to speculate that I have to wonder if I did it in a past life. That's why. That's how natural it feels to me. Being a hypnotherapist, I wonder, was I one of those practitioners in ancient Egypt or ancient Greece, because it just has always felt natural to me from the first time that I was learning to do it. And so I bring to the table the most important thing, Elijah, I think, is I have to create a safe environment, a safe place that the person who's being hypnotized is turning a lot of trust over to me. So my objective in any hypnotherapeutic process, my objective is to make that person incredibly comfortable and allow them to feel super safe. And if I can do that, I can do all the rest of it.
Wow. Very interesting. It is sweet. Cool. Oh my gosh. My brain is so freaking slow. I feel stupid. Oh my gosh. Lesley. Oh my gosh. That's crazy. So your book is Intersection, the True Story of Extraterrestrial Contact.
Yes.
So where can
that can be,
where can we find it?
Go ahead. You can get that easily on Amazon.com, or if you're in Canada, Amazon.ca. Amazon anywhere. That's the place to get it. And I should say that the gentleman that I worked with, Wes Roberts, who is the subject of the book, has just written his own book, which is coming out soon, called An Experiencer's Garden. And I read it, an early copy, and it's wonderful. And it makes me feel very gratified that this person who came to me so long ago, who couldn't even look me in the eye, they were so fearful, has now written an amazing book about his own experiences. To me, that is, I can't tell you how gratifying that is. Wow. I can't even express it, really. It chokes me up a little bit.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you this, I'm going to get it because I want to.
All right.
Gosh. I want to see how deep this stuff goes, because this is just good stuff. It really is. And you're, and correct me if I'm wrong, your website is what, lightworkhypnosis.com?
That's right. Lightworkhypnosis.com. And honestly, my website is currently undergoing a facelift, and God knows I need a facelift too, but I'm starting with the website. So.
Gotcha.
But also another great place, you can find me on Facebook, either under Lesley Mitchell-Clarke or Lightwork Hypnosis. And that will be a very current way to reach me. And, you know, I really love hearing from people. And if you want to just even talk to me or think that you may have had an experience, my mobile phone is always on. You can always ring me or text me at 416-454-8041. And I will get back to you just as soon as I possibly can, usually within 24 hours.
Yeah, we'll have all your information also down in the description.
Absolutely.
So all of our users can get to it. I'm trying to think, is there anything I missed? I'm trying to go through everything here. There's just this could go on for hours. Oh my gosh.
I know. Well, this will have to be part one.
It will have to be. Oh my goodness. Wow. Yeah, I'm just trying to think.
I think we made a pretty good start, and it's been just a pleasure talking to you, Elijah. And as I said, don't forget your importance in disclosure, your importance in leading us into the new era. You are a midwife of disclosure.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it, Lesley.
All right. All right.
Thank you.